A series of events that were hugely consequential in the history of North America, and one of the most recognizable drum intros in the history of heavy metal. Let's go! So, when they're not playing live, playing football, soccer, playing golf, fencing, flying planes, or settling themselves down for a calm afternoon on the side of the river doing a bit of angling, you would assume that Iron Maiden would have their bonces deep in the pages of an old dusty history book. Such is their back catalogue of historic themed tunes. And today we'll be checking the classic Run to the Hills. Released in February 1982, it was the first single off the iconic Number of the Beast album, and additionally it was the first piece of Maiden music that featured Bruce Dickinson on vocals. And it peaked in the UK charts at number 7, and, well, it's long been a fan favourite. Okay. Oh, yes, that iconic drum intro. It's kind of like a on the hi-hat, and then you've got I think a hit on the toms. Not that I'm an expert on drumming or anything like that, but brilliant. So, let's get into the tech, shall we? White man came across the sea. He brought us pain and misery. He killed our tribes, he killed our creed. He took our game for his own need. Across the sea. Well, this is obviously written from the perspective of the indigenous people of America, right? And the white man coming from across the sea is essentially the beginning of colonization in North America. Now, this colonization, of course, didn't happen overnight. It was like a protracted series of events. And, we know Christopher Columbus, that's the official, he was the guy that found the New World. However, it's believed that the Viking explorer, Leif Erikson, arrived around the year 970. So that's quite a bit of time before Columbus, right? But there's also a lesser-known story of the Welsh prince Madog ap Owain Gwynedd, who, according to a 15th century document, had sailed to the Americas in the 12th century. So that's a good 300 years before Columbus. But anyway, Mr. Columbus gets the credit for, finding North America. So, of course, the lyric, White Man Came Across the Sea, it's referring to the various European powers, right, that would gradually gain a foothold in North America. So you had the French. They arrived in what is modern-day Canada in the 1500s. You had the Dutch. They had sort of colonized that area around New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts. The Swedish had a pocket of Delaware. And even the Russians, the Germans, and the Scottish also tried to colonize North America, even though they weren't very successful. They did have a go at it. And, of course, there were the British. And the British, I think their first successful colony was Jamestown. Let me just check. Yes, it was Jamestown in 1607. Then, of course, there was the Plymouth colony, which started not long after Jamestown, which is made famous because of the Pilgrim Fathers. Yep. As we all know, the images of grateful pilgrims and helpful natives, and it is sort of the foundational myth of Thanksgiving, right? Which obviously is a huge holiday over in the US. So, looking at the text, they brought us pain and misery. Now, I originally thought that was only referring to things like the Indian Wars, because, of course, when you've seen media about colonization of America, you always see or hear about the wars between colonists and American Indians, rather. However, it was a number of epidemics brought to the continent by the European colonists that would be the most devastating for native tribes. And I'm just looking at this list here. So it appears that the worst of these epidemics came after 1492. And essentially the Europeans brought over Eurasian germs. And according to this, there were a number of epidemics of smallpox, 1518, 1521, 1525, 1558, 1589. There was another epidemic of typhus, 1546, another of influenza in 1558, diphtheria, 1640, and measles in 1618. Wow, this is shocking. There are estimates of these epidemics killing anywhere between 10 million and 100 million people, which according to this is up to 95% of the indigenous population of the Americas. So yeah, he took our game for his own need. Well, when so many tribes are being wiped out by epidemics and disease, then the land is sort of freed up. So the colonists had this vast amount of land and resources that they could just take, I suppose, without too much resistance. So essentially, as we know, the French and the Brits and the Dutch and the Spanish, they all kind of fought over little bits of land, didn't they? You know, trying to grab what they could. In the meanwhile, the indigenous people were just getting squeezed and losing everything. And this block of text is essentially talking about them fighting for freedom and survival, I suppose. We fought him hard, we fought him well. Out on the plains we gave him hell. But many came too much for Cree. Oh, will we ever be set free? So there. Exactly. The Americans are fighting for survival and for freedom. So that's where that's coming from. So let's get back to it.
Riding through those clouds and barren wastes, galloping hard on the plains, chasing the redskins back to their holes, fighting them at their own game. Murder for freedom, they're stabbing the back. Women and children are cowards attack. Run to the hills. Run for your lives. Run to the hills. Run for your lives.
All right.
Soldier.
Whee. Well, that... Yes, we've just found ourselves hurtling around the Wild West frontier on horseback there. Suddenly that galloping... it's the famous bass gallop of Steve Harris, right? Brilliant. And it's well and truly driving the pace as well. It's picked up in real energy and force. And riding through dust clouds and barren wastes, galloping hard on the plains. Yes, we can hear it galloping. Chasing the redskins back to their holes. So now we are no longer a Native American Indian. We are now a colonist, fighting them at their own game. Murder for freedom, a stab in the back, women and children and cowards attack. Murder for freedom. The murder of Indians for the freedom of colonists? Is that what it means? Or the freedom for colonists to do whatever they want? Which is quite a contrast, I suppose. And also, that last one, I guess, women and children and cowards attack. I don't think that means they're attacking, but more they have no issue killing women and children. And cowards, I suppose that would be anybody who isn't resisting. So anybody who isn't fighting against them, they would consider a coward, I suppose. Basically, no mercy for the indigenous people is pretty much the gist of this, right? Such was the drive and the greed of colonists. And I suppose they were in competition against the other European countries as well. So everybody was just going mad, weren't they? They were just grab. A mere 10 years after the Pilgrim Fathers landed in New England, the official government there issued orders called the Phipps Bounty Proclamation, which essentially put a price on the scalps of indigenous men, indigenous women, and indigenous children. And they gave rewards for these scalps. And the reward for a scalp of a man was twice the value of that of a woman, with the scalp of a child being a little less than that of a woman. And the financial reward for the scalp of an indigenous man was the equivalent of a 2-year wage of a serving soldier. So they were getting paid quite well for essentially murdering the indigenous people. And apparently bounty hunters were granted the land of the people that they scalped. So thousands of acres, I assume, were granted to these scalpers. And this is really interesting. The land, this is all documented, right? The land was used to found towns that the bounty hunters named after themselves. And there's actually a list of some of these very same towns. And the documentation shows which towns were established by scalpers. And there's a whole, like I said, there's a whole list. Westbrook in Maine, Shirley in Massachusetts, Spencer in Massachusetts, and that's just only a few of them. I wonder if any of the residents living there today have any idea about the origins of where they're living. Blimey. Right, well, let's get back to Maiden.
Soldier blue in the barren wastes, hunting and killing's a game. Raping the women and wasting the men, the only good Indians are tame. Selling them whiskey and taking their gold, enslaving the young and destroying the old. Run to the hills, run for your
Such a great chorus. Back up there again. Oh. I tell you what, Bruce Dickinson certainly announced himself, didn't he? This being the first track with him on it. The screams. And if I remember rightly, on the Number of the Beast album, they actually called him the Air Raid Siren, right? Oh, brilliant. Let's get back to the text. Soldier blue in the barren wastes. Hunting and killing's a game. Raping the women and wasting the men. The only good Injuns are tame. The colonists aren't looking very good in this, are they? Selling them whiskey and taking their gold, enslaving the young and destroying the old. Yeah. Soldier blue in the barren waste. That is, I guess, a reference to the regular army cavalry, which I suppose, you know, if you looked at movies from the last 60, 70 years, like old John Wayne movies and all this kind of stuff, they're always kitted up in this blue uniform, right? It's the army cavalry. And this is, I suppose, what I was thinking regarding why so many Indians perished during colonization, and that's the Indian Wars, which lasted for around 100 years between 1790 and 1890. And I mean, there are some famous battles, right? The War of the Plains Indians, the Sioux War, famous tribe, the Apache War, another famous tribe, and the only good Injuns are tame. Essentially, that's just a put down, isn't it? I mean, they're looking down on these people with disdain, selling them whiskey and taking their gold. Now, I found something really interesting here. Now, apparently, selling alcohol to American Indians was made illegal as early as 1701. And it was illegal specifically to sell whiskey in the 1800s. And the reason for this was it was creating problems in the Indian reservations. So this was already at a time when Indians were being relocated. And of course, you got taking their gold. I think in reality, they were taking a bit more than the gold. They were taking pretty much everything that the Indians had. But of course, there was the intense push west. There was the gold rush, which was happening throughout the 1800s. But yeah, it's a great song. It is a great song. And I don't know whether it was the first song that covered this particular topic. I know there have been since, but I'm unaware of any before. But perhaps there are. Maybe if there's anybody out there that would like to tell me about it, put it in the comment section. But the chorus is iconic, isn't it? And the scream. I mean, for a lot of people, that scream was almost the soundtrack of 1980s heavy metal, wasn't it? But yeah, the topic, the subject matter, direct confrontation, such as, you know, the famous Battle of Little Big Horn and Custer. Other Indian tribes, they used diplomacy. Some of them even actually started working with the colonists. And this is something I didn't really know. There was a partnership, a strategic partnership between Indians and the United States during the War of 1812, which was the the war against the United Kingdom. The lifestyle and landscape of the indigenous Native American people changed forever, I suppose. Steve Harris, the bassist, is credited as being the songwriter, but apparently Bruce Dickinson also contributed to writing the song. But because he was still in some kind of contractual agreement with his former band, Samson, he wasn't allowed to have his name associated with Run to the Hills. But yeah, Bruce Dickinson's first single, we know the album that came after it, not long after it, was, the one that really propelled them forward. And it was a whole new chapter for Iron Maiden, and one that was only going to get bigger and better. Up the irons.